You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
So happy to have you with me here today on this Total Wellness Tuesday show, where we're going to be going over the 7 strange health contraindications to be aware of. And the reason why I wanted to bring you these today, the reason why I'm excited to share this topic with you, is because in the media and oftentimes in conventional medicine, we're brought forth these certain set of absolutes, meaning like doctors or the media or some type of health education will say certain things like, you need to be drinking 8 glasses of water today. You can only get 15 minutes of sun or you get skin cancer. All of these specific things. So we're basically told, do this, don't do that. And I'll tell you right now that this specific type of teaching is going to do oftentimes more harm than it will do good. And the reason is that we know by now that certain people need more of one thing and less of the other. And if they get too much or too little of that thing, they can actually get more sick, they can lose energy, they can end up with headaches and migraines and gut-based dysfunction, they can end up with hormone-based dysfunction. And I know that we cover these things a lot on the Cabral Concept, but this is one of those shows that's going to kind of pull it together and allow you to understand that when you believe and when you know that there's this thing called bioindividuality, you'll begin to see that there could never be one meal plan, one set of foods, one exercise program that could be great for everyone. Now, you do keep in mind that you need a foundation. So the foundation is exercise. The foundation is good nutrition. When we tell people that the ideal thing they can do is eat a lighter breakfast, they can do a smoothie, absolutely fantastic. Now, should some people do it a little bit warmer? Sure, allow it to sit for 15, 20 minutes. Blend it up a little bit more so it's not as cold if you are the Vata-based body type, right? Add a bowl of warm oatmeal on the side, especially during the winter, if you're more of the Vata-based body type. But not if you're the Kapha, if you're more prone to gaining weight, right? Because you're not going to do all those extra starches right away, especially in the morning, right? So when we look at things, we can understand that we need a foundation, right? The foundation would then be an easier to digest breakfast with all of the nutrients that you need to start your day, to get ready, because remember, you're not having a very relaxed day. You're not sitting on the couch all day. So your body needs the nutrition, the fuel to be able to power you through that. And of course, keep your body healthy. Well, there are many different scenarios like this. And the media, of course, doesn't tell you exactly you should be eating this for breakfast or not. So I want to go over the ones that are perpetuated quite often in this health field, but also the media and conventional medicine. So let's get started. But before we do go through the 7 different health contraindications that I want to talk to you about is that you have to understand for each of these specific recommendations, you have to look at it from a Vata-based state in Ayurveda. Now, again, I'm going to bring this over to modern day, we'll call it functional medicine, is that means more of a catabolic state. It means more of a stressed out state. It means you're more prone to losing weight, breaking down, all of those things, right? So it's more of catabolic, which means breakdown, high stress. It can be high cortisol, but it can also be low cortisol. Like once you're burnt out, you're going to have low cortisol, right? So it can mean on the lower or losing weight. That's what we're going to call Vata for today, more catabolic, okay? Now, for the Pitta, we're going to refer to that as more of the heated-based state, more aggression, more irritability, and also stronger metabolic rate, stronger metabolism, okay? And then the third part is going to be the Kapha-based state. We'll refer to that as more of the slower, the lethargic, more of the sluggish-based state, or gains weight easily. So put yourself into a category. Just lump yourself into one for right now. Again, present day, right? Present day. That can change in a month or 2 months or 3 months. But let's just talk about the state you're in right now. It's all that matters, to be honest, because your body is always trying to achieve equilibrium. So you have to work at the current state that you're in. Now, in the future, when you're balanced, well, then you can eat and exercise and all that for your current state. But for your genetic state, right? Your dosha, your genotype. But Remember, we're working with our genotype, but always, even within that framework, you're working for the season, the climate, you're traveling, less sleep, more sleep, all of those different things. That's why it's so important to understand that our bodies are always trying to achieve that thing called dynamic equilibrium. It's always trying to create a state of balance. That's what it's all about. So as I'm going through these 7 health-based statements today, I want you to understand that I'm doing it from a standpoint of balance. Always about balance. Not moderation, but balance. Remember that. It's all about balance. So the first health contraindication, the first health recommendation is this. Everyone needs to drink 8 glasses of water per day. Now, keep in mind, most of these recommendations are set at a basis point that are sound in nature, that we want to be using for the most part. It makes sense. And I'm not disagreeing with it, but I need to give you how you can tweak this based on your own bio-individuality, okay? So who needs to drink 8 glasses of water per day? Well, for a normal person, meaning normal health, right? So you're not dealing with the issues that a lot of people in our practice are dealing with. You just have like baseline health. Okay, not a problem at all. Normal walking, normal exercise, about 8 ounces, fine. But also, it doesn't even take into account weight, right? And weight is a huge variation. So as I've given you before, a better recommendation than 8 glasses of water per day is about half your weight in ounces per day. So do it in pounds. So if you weigh 160 pounds, we'll say, if you take half of that, you get 80. If that's 80 ounces, we'll call it then, right? 160 pounds, take half, that's 80. That means 80 ounces. Well, there's 8 ounces per glass of water. So if we do the math, and I do like easy math, that's 10 glasses per day. So now for a 160-pound person, more realistically, what that person needs is about 5 16-ounce water bottles, right, throughout the whole day, or they need 10 total glasses of water per day. And that can be mixed throughout the day. Now, I front load my day with much more water. I'll talk about that in the future. It's far more detoxifying, which is also why I recommend that 99% of people do a smoothie for breakfast, why it's hydrating. It also counts as part of your water. Here's what I want to get into now. The Vata body type would not do well, the thinner body type that loses a lot of weight, that has maybe a little bit more lightheadedness or lower blood pressure, does not do well with straight water. If they drink straight water, especially distilled or reverse osmosis, they become more depleted. Why would they become more depleted? Well, remember, this body type is more catabolic. They lose more. They're more electrolyte deficient, especially in sodium. So if we put more water into their body without any sea salt, without any sodium, they get more flushed. I should say their body flushes out more minerals because they are taking in more water. Their cells can't hold more water because they need the sodium and the minerals and the electrolytes with it. And it comes out as urine. Along with that urine comes out more minerals. Well, it's easy to test. You can actually test this by looking at the specific gravity of urine. I'm going to teach that in the future because I think it's great for health practitioners and really even everybody to learn how to test their specific gravity to let you know how hydrated you are or overhydrated. Believe it or not, a lot of Vata-based body types don't do well with that much water. They do better with smoothies. And the reason they do is, one, their body needs the glucose. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. But the second is they need the minerals. And when you take in fruit, especially organic fruit, especially locally grown, especially if they're using, like a crop rotation-based system and the nutrients are in the soil, well, now they're getting more minerals. Now their body knows how to use it. So it's so much better because their body can soak up the water and utilize the water. Because remember, fruit and vegetables are for the most part 80 to 90% water. So now they're getting all the water contained in the fruit, right? You can even see this in nature. If you take, let's just say, a peach or an apricot, which most people know about, and you dehydrate it, it shrinks down to nothing. What about a grape? You shrink that grape down, it becomes a raisin, right? It's so much smaller. Well, all of that, the fiber stayed intact. What you're losing is all the water from that grape to the raisins. You can see you get a lot of water with fruit and vegetables. So this is absolutely amazing. Works great for the Vata body type. Okay, for the Pitta, well, the Pitta does well with about half their body weight in ounces of water per day, especially if they're exercising, because the Pitta body type heats up easier and they sweat much, much more than their counterparts, the Kapha or the Vata. Well, what does that really mean? Well, it means this, that when you look at it, if you're sweating a lot, you need to drink more water, more than that 10 ounces or 10 glasses per day if you're 160 pounds. But you should add back in the electrolytes, especially if you're sweating and you can see the white stains on your clothes. That typically means you're losing a lot of electrolytes, and again, namely sodium. What have I recommended before is a great form of water, a natural Gatorade to drink? Well, you're going to take an 8-ounce glass of water, and you're going to squeeze in a half a lime, and you're going to put in a pinch of sea salt. That will give you back your potassium and your sodium, and it's absolutely tremendous for replacing at least 2 of those 4 electrolytes. The Kapha-based body type, more of the body type that might gain more weight, they accumulate more, they have more of the high blood pressure, higher cholesterol, the type 2 diabetes, they need lots of water per day. And the reason is you want to flush. So this body type does great a lot of times with reverse osmosis or even sometimes distilled water. Now, I'm not recommending distilled water, but what those things do is they actually remove and chelate and they use up more minerals because they don't contain the minerals themselves. Now, the Kapha body type could be retaining more sodium. They could be retaining more fluid in general. So the more water we have, the more we're going to be able to flush that body and act as a natural diuretic. So as you can see right there, the different body types are based at where you're at will need different varying amounts of water. Now, let's not base this on body types today because I don't want this to be an Ayurvedic-based show. I want to base it on the state that you're in. So remember, doshas aren't body types. Doshas are basically life forces, all right? So I'm talking about it as the current state that you're in. Are you depleted? Are you low energy? Are you losing weight without even really trying? Well, you're going to need more of your water from basically vegetables if you're more on the heavier side in terms of weight gain. Now, if you're more on the lighter side, you're losing more weight, you have a smaller frame, get it more from your smoothies or vegetable juices. Carrot juice is phenomenal. Celery juice is phenomenal. Juice your veggies and you'll get lots of fluid from those with all of the minerals in that. And then, of course, plenty of water if you are sweating profusely as well. What's an easy way to test as well? I've spoken about this. Look at your urine. When you urinate, well, if you're taking B vitamins, it is going to be a brighter yellow in the first place. But if you urinate and it's away from your B vitamins, your urine should be a very pale yellow. If it's clear, well, you're hydrated fully or overhydrated. If it is a darker color of yellow or even a brownish color, you need a lot more water and quickly because your kidneys need that fluid immediately. All right, so that is number 1. Drinking 8 glasses of water per day, you can see how it should be higher or lower. And you can use this now if you're a practitioner with your clients or patients. And if you can use this obviously for your family as well. Teach your children this, teach your friends this, teach your coworkers, your parents this. It's vitally important. All right, the whole 15 minutes of sun. To me, it never made sense, like ever. So you're telling me one of my good friends, he literally starts to burn in the sun after 15 minutes. We'll go to the beach and he's completely covered up. He's either wearing a shirt, a t-shirt, or he has like SPF 100 on, which is smart, right? Because he's going to burn, and burning is bad for your health. However, I also have friends who have that are African American, and so their pigmentation is going to be much darker. Should they be putting on sunscreen at the beach after 15 minutes? Of course not. 15 minutes of sun makes absolutely no sense. You're going to base it on your sun requirements, right? Like, it only makes sense. So this whole thing about you should be afraid of the sun, absolutely not. You should be afraid of the sun at the point where you're going to burn because you should not get a sunburn. But you should be able to get a tan. Now, the only reason you wouldn't get a tan, which I actually think is not healthy, but if you didn't get one, it would be because you're worried about skin damage from a different perspective, meaning like you're worried about wrinkles or that type of thing. That's a different story. But I will tell you, from all the research I've done, and especially looking into the longest lived populations, they got most of their vitamin D from the sun. Now, nowadays, if you live in a climate like I do, from really October until May, early June, you need to be supplementing with vitamin D. And that's because vitamin D is essential to our overall health. It's essential at preventing cancer. It's essential at burning body fat. It's essential at overall health. You need it, right? Well, you're going to get enough vitamin D once your skin starts to turn just that pinkish color. Not sunburned, not red. You just say, oh, okay, the sun has got enough color. So now you're going to add your natural sunscreen, and you can just go to stephencabral.com/podcast and type in natural sunscreen or just sunscreen. You'll see a homemade version that you can make at home or the brand that I recommend that you can purchase, okay? Super easy to do. Or you can also just cover up. So a lot of times, like my daughter's at the beach, they'll put a hat on, maybe they'll put a shirt on. But a lot of times, just by the end of summer, like right now, no one in my family needs suntan lotion. And the reason is everybody has a tan. And that tan is your own natural sun protection. That pigmentation in your skin allows you to get more sun, right? I mean, that is allowing you to block those rays. And so that's why the darker your pigmentation, the more sun you need. It just, again, this only makes sense, and we can look at that through lab testing as well at vitamin D levels. So you have your own barometer of how much sun you can get. When you start to turn just that slightest bit pink, that's it. Might be 15 minutes for some, might be 8 hours for others. And that's the truth, right? Because people are meant to get more sun than others on a daily basis, okay? At least more days than not, 4 times a week in order to keep those vitamin D levels up. If you're not, get your vitamin D levels tested on either the thyroid adrenal hormone test or the singular vitamin D test. Great test to run. You can even run it with your PCP. A lot of them refuse to do it, but you can just ask for a 25-hydroxy vitamin D test to look at your levels twice a year. Okay, twice a year is the best to test for. Okay, next up is coffee helps prevent cognitive decline. So a lot of people say coffee is good for you because it can help prevent things such as dementia. And other people say coffee is bad for you because it can really burn out the adrenals. And I would say both of those people are correct based on the research. So now how do you know what's best for you? Well, here's the thing. If you are more of the sluggish-based state, not because of burnout, but because you're more of the endomorphic body type, you have larger calves and larger joints in general, you have more of a rounder face, you put on weight easier, you can sleep a lot, all of those different things. Like, go back to my previous Ayurveda podcast, but if you're more of the sluggish type, not because of adrenal burnout, because anybody can get that, meaning like you can have adrenal fatigue technically is not, we call it adrenal fatigue, but really it's hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis dysfunction. But of course, that's a mouthful, right? HPA axis dysfunction. So we just call it adrenal-based issues. And that means that the body's not producing the amount of cortisol that it should. That can happen to anyone. That doesn't mean you should artificially spike it with caffeine. The people that get the most benefit from that are the people that produce what? Lower amounts of neurotransmitters by nature. They're going to be more of the endomorphic body type, more of the kapha-based body type. And so they'll get much more benefit from using a little bit of caffeine. Not going overboard, but using a little bit of caffeine, maybe that 300 milligrams per day. Whereas the more of the catabolic body type, more of the vata, well, the caffeine would be absolutely detrimental. It would spike their nervous system to a greater degree. It would produce even more neurotransmitters, and they typically already produce a lot of adrenaline, a lot of cortisol, a lot of dopamine, too much acetylcholine. And what happens is that can start to then break down the myelin sheath of the nervous system, of the nerves. It can start to actually cause things such as Alzheimer's or dementia. So the same things that can be helpful for the endomorph can be harmful for the vata. And the reason that is, or the more catabolic type we'll call it today, is because about bioindividuality. If you're producing more cortisol, well, you're actually burning out brain cells. You're creating more inflammaging, right? But if you don't produce that much cortisol naturally or neurotransmitters naturally, well then a little bit of a boost, not all day long, but in the morning, could give you a little bit of a helping hand. So it's like, well, I don't know what to do. Well, first of all, you're going to begin to learn your constitution. But second, you're able to lab test if you want, if you need to, right? You're able to do that. And third is when in doubt, well, with this particular case is, do you need the caffeine, right? That's the first question. The second is, do you need caffeine because you're just exhausted, you're overworked, you're overwhelmed? Well, that's not the reason to use caffeine. That's the reason to build your body back up. But if you need that because you are naturally a little bit more sluggish, always have been, right? You do gain weight a lot more easily. Well, black coffee could be some benefit not first thing in the morning. I always say after breakfast, so it doesn't provide as much of a sharp spike on that nervous system, okay? Really, really important to look at. And then this is a place where we don't want to go overboard. A pot of coffee is not a great idea for anyone, right? A cup of coffee, well, okay, that makes sense for a particular individual. So hopefully that shows you a little bit of the back and forth there. Number 4 is this: 8 hours of sleep per night. I've never understood this one either. So everyone just needs 8 hours, right? Is that it? Or is there some type of a, back and forth? And there is, right? So I know that when my children were 3 years and younger, they need 12 hours, right? They need 12 hours of sleep. Infants, even more. They're always sleeping, right? And now that they're getting to be 4 and 6 years old, well, it's more like 10 to 11 hours of sleep. Teenagers still need about 9 to 10 hours of sleep, usually more. They're going through a massive transformation-based stage at that time. They also have a lot of stress with sports and high school and preparing for college. Really, really important until about the age of 23 to 25, depending on the individual, that you're getting a good 9 to 10 hours of sleep per night. And I know most people that age are not, because I work with a lot of children and I work with a lot of teenagers, and they're more stressed now than ever. And they have sports till late at night. Then they're doing homework and they're preparing for exams. They've got relationship and social-based stress, and they're waking up too early. Like, it's not natural at all, but you're trying to do your best. Now, for the average individuals, is 8 hours a great number to shoot for? Absolutely. Like, without a doubt. Absolutely. So you're getting 1 hour of sleep for every 2 waking hours. However, the more strenuous your day and the more of an ectomorph you are, more of the catabolic state, the more breaking down, the more sleep you need. So if you exercise for 3-4 hours a day or more because that's your job, well, you need a lot more sleep. You might even need a nap mid-afternoon, right? Or nap after lunch. That will be much more what? It will be the balance to catabolism. The more hours you sleep, the more anabolic. If you're trying to gain muscle, if you're trying to gain weight, if you're trying to recover faster, sleep more. That's basically it. The faster you need to recover, the faster you need to gain weight or recover and repair your body, you need to sleep more. So now think about it. I just gave you the answer, right? For that more anabolic state, the body type that gains weight easier. Do they need more sleep? Yes or no? The answer is no. They're closer to the 7 hours of sleep per night. They can definitely get 8, right? Because again, we live in a stress-based society. So get your 8 hours, sure. But really, the body type that gains weight more easily, if you're gaining weight again because of high cortisol, well, you need to balance the lifestyle and of course get that 8 hours, but they can do better towards the 7 hours. But the catabolic state, the person that needs to recover more and repair that nervous system, better at 9 hours of sleep. Now, I know most people can't get 9 hours, but you're going to do your best. You're certainly not going to be more towards the 7. And that moderate base state, that pitta state, sure, somewhere right about that 8 hours is great, even though that body type loves to go to bed late and wake up early, because those are typically, mindset at least wise, those are the people that are really just trying to get after it. They're very competitive. They say things like, I'll sleep when I die, those types. I'm one of those people, and it's not good because I literally have to combat that every single day, because I would love to stay up an extra hour than my body should have. My mind wants to, and I want to wake up at 4 a.m., 4:30 a.m. But I've done that, but that burns up my body at a much faster degree. So I have to fight the mindset and do what's right for my nervous system and my body. So hopefully that helps there. Number 5 is this. Carbs cause us to gain weight. Carbs are the reason we become fat. Carbs are the reason we get diabetes. Carbs are not, okay? Carbs are the precursor that can allow your body to use glucose as energy or store it as fat, because it spikes blood sugar, which increases insulin production, which then stores that as body fat. Here's the thing though. We all know our friends, those who are very thin, and they can eat pasta and they can eat bread and they can eat all those things. Now, we're not saying those are healthy. We're still saying they are inflammatory. So they're not health foods. However, those people don't gain weight eating them. That's the detriment actually of that body type. If you don't gain weight by eating all of those white starches, right, all of that processed-based food, it actually means you can still become very unhealthy. You can still have the high cholesterol, the high triglycerides. You can still suffer from autoimmune-based issues and gut-based issues and all those issues, right? But it doesn't mean that you'll gain weight. That's why that body type has a very difficult time giving those up, because they don't see the outward effect on them, but it is affecting them internally. However, for the more of the endomorph-based state or the kapha-based state, they eat all of those starches and carbs and it turns to body fat. Why would this be? We have two different people, right? So carbs don't make you fat because we know for one specific body type, it doesn't make them gain weight. Sure, eventually, once they get to maybe like 800 carbs per day, right? For some people, 600 carbs per day, sure, then they will. Or if they start to consume a lot of alcohol, yes, that can be it as well, because it slows down those detox-based pathways, and it's obviously very inflammatory and unhealthy for the body. Okay, so why do some and why do other people not gain weight? Well, I've gone over this before, but I'll give you the cursory overview, is that some people are more glucose-based burners. I talked about this book before by Dr. George Watson, Nutrition in the Mind. It's out of print, but this was a book that I was fortunate enough to get my hands on, and it talks about slow and fast oxidizers. I don't recommend the diet that he's recommending because it talks about bacon and those types of things. But the point is this, is that you see some people who thrive off glucose, and they always will, right? Because there are different body types. There's different bioindividuality. And some people that don't, right? Everybody needs carbs. Everybody needs carbs. They are not the enemy. And that's because the Vata body type, they run off more starches. And I talked about this last week. So if you went over and you checked out my podcast 936 last week, you'll see what each body type needs more of. Well, do understand that if the Vata doesn't get those starches, they become irritable, they become run down, they become weak, they become feeble. It is not good for both the mind and body. But if you give those same starches, now again, kaphas need some too. It's fine. That endomorph state needs some, but it will cause them to gain weight. How much? That is for you to find out, and it's not difficult. So you begin with the diet plan that I've talked about on many Wellness and Weight Loss Wednesdays, like the Dr. Ball Detox, and then start to begin to transition off a low-carb diet. And I spoke about that as well on a podcast called Transition Off a Low-Carb Diet. And you'll see how much works for your body, at least in your current state. If you begin to output more, exercise more, well, then you'll probably be able to eat more carbs as well. But remember, the endomorph, they do better getting their starches or their carbs from vegetables predominantly and some berries. They don't do as well with the heavier starches. Now, they can still have some sweet potatoes. And again, I spoke about that last week on the show as well. So simply check out episode 936. But remember, they are better at actually burning body fat and oxidizing at a slow body rate. I know that doesn't make sense first off, and I've explained this, but since they're better at that, they actually convert glucose to body fat. And then their body just burns very slowly off that. So the idea is not to accumulate the body fat in the first place. Keep those blood glucose levels more level, and that's why they do better with just 3 meals per day as well, and not as much starch, whereas the ectomorph or the Vata state is different. Okay, went over that quite a bit. Number 6 is this, sauna. We're all about sauna. I've done so many podcasts on that. I want you to go back and check it out. Go to stephencabral.com/podcast. Type in sauna, S-O-U-N-A, or type in 19 minutes. I gave you some phenomenal research on how 19 minutes of sauna most days per week can literally change your health and your longevity. Check out that show, 19 minutes. That's all you have to type into stephencabral.com/podcast. Well, we all know that we need sauna. How much sauna do we need though? That's the question, right? It's a huge benefit for all of us, but how much do we need? Well, if you have the Vata, the catabolic, the type that loses more faster in the sauna for a longer time, what happens? They sweat more. What happens? They lose more of their electrolytes. It goes back to point number 1 about the water. So if the Vata is going to do this for any period of time, they need to be drinking electrolyte solution. But the important thing is actually the Vata does a little less because the heat alone will even begin to weaken them. Because sauna is actually exercise. A lot of people don't know this, but it increases your heart rate, right? It's a thermogenic-based effect. Your body actually has to begin to cool itself, which takes energy. The Vata is not known to have an abundance of energy. So how much for the Vata? Well, probably somewhere around that 19 minutes to maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes, right? They might be able to do every other day, but not every day, right? Like the body type that accumulates more, or let's call it the state, the kapha state. If you've gained weight and you're currently trying to lose weight, well, sauna is tremendous for that because it's going to help you sweat out a lot of those toxins, which is one of the reasons why you might have been gaining weight, right? So a lot of people are doing the Dr. Ball Detox days 3 through 7 or 4 through 7. We love people to do a sauna on the Dr. Ball Detox because you've already opened up the detox pathways in the liver by doing the Dr. Ball Detox, and then you're going to help sweat it out. So you help your body out. So great. And so it's so tremendous for that kapha body type. And a lot of kaphas, the endomorphs, they don't love to exercise because they're a little bit more sluggish. So get in that sauna. It's going to burn calories as well. It's going to speed up that metabolism while you're in it, and it's going to help you to detoxify. And so do it for as long as you can, right? 30 to 40 minutes. Don't become too depleted, but 30, 40 minutes could be fantastic. And again, it depends on the heat. If you're going in at 180 degrees heat, well, you're not going to be doing 40 minutes, right? You're going to drop that down. So for most people, about 150 degrees heat, and that's what most of the research is based on as well. And it's also going to save the capillary health in your eyes. I'll talk about that on a future show. And then for the pitta, well, they get aggravated a little bit more because they're not as great with heat if you're a pitta body type, especially in the summer months, of course. So what you're going to do is just use moderate heat for the pitta and still be able to do that. Okay, my last one, because I want to keep this at the 30-minute mark, is we always talk about running is good for you or running is bad for you, right? We always talk about running. Running can be this great thing or this detrimental thing. Well, here's the deal. If you're overweight by, let's say, 30 pounds or more, running is not a great idea. And that's because think about holding a 30-pound weight and running down the street with it. Well, that's really what's happening on your natural body type, your natural body state. And that's different for each person. So here's the deal, though. As you lose the weight, running can actually become more healthy because there's less stress on your joints. But we can take it too far. People that are doing long-distance endurance-based training, I would say really 40, 50 minutes or more of training at a clip at one time. We know that it causes micro tears in the heart, micro damage in the cardiovascular-based system. That leads then to more inflammation. And it actually leads to heart attack and cardiovascular-based risk at a much younger age. We've seen this in marathoners. We've seen this in Ironman triathletes. And in women, especially this longer distance, we work with a lot of female athletes. And our job is they're not going to stop doing triathlons, and they're not going to stop doing Spartan races, and they're not going to stop doing marathons because that's kind of their job. It's like their sport. So we have to help them create balance because the problem is it really messes with female hormones. Starts to really lower progesterone. It can spike cortisol levels. It can lower thyroid. They become hypothyroid. So we see huge issues with women, so much so that it often causes a cessation of their menstrual cycle or amenorrhea. So what we do is we help obviously women with that. We run the thyroid adrenal hormone lab test. We figure out what's going on and we see how their running is affecting them. And then our job is simply to create balance, right? More sleep at night, more downtime, more relaxation, more stretching to create the balance. So I believe, though, once you've basically gotten within about 10 to 20 pounds of your ideal weight, you can begin doing some jogging, running, as long as you are in biomechanical alignment, which means that your ankles, knees, hips, lower back, mid-back, shoulders, all that are in good alignment. Well, you can enjoy a 20-minute, 30-minute jog. Get out there. Why? Because running, not just interval-based training, running can actually oxygenate all the cells in your body, right? So when you have 40 trillion cells in your body, and you're looking to become more alkaline, as we say, right? All we're talking about is becoming more oxygenated, a higher pH, right? So what I want you to do is this, is oxygenate those cells. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. Actually, the more I get into it, the more I kind of recommend cardio, like regular cardio. Interval training is amazing. Don't get me wrong. I love interval training, and I use it a lot for body transformation. But regular cardio is good too, a couple times a week. And I've gotten back to this. And the reason is that I've seen the upright bike and I've seen even some jogging just to get the body moving and to oxygenate all of the tissues because I've been doing more cancer research. And I see one of the things that are beneficial as part of a natural health-based protocol, even if you're using conventional-based protocols, is to do cardio, not interval training, because that's anaerobic. That means without oxygen. But cardiovascular aerobic is with oxygen. So by doing 20 to 40 minutes of cardio, just a couple times a week, once a week, twice a week, will allow you to get more oxygen into your body. That will allow you better cellular respiration. That means more waste will be eliminated from the cell and more nutrients will be able to get in. So it's this amazing thing, and that's why, remember, not all good, not all bad. You hear me talk about when it's bad, too much, right? And then, of course, too little could be negative as well. That is what I want the takeaway to be today, is that there's always a happy medium, but that medium depends on you. And even more so, it depends on your current state. If you're exhausted and wiped out from too much travel, all that, well, you need more sleep, right? And if you are really low blood pressure and you're depleted and you're feeling weak, you don't need to be drinking a gallon of water, right? That's not the scenario that you should be a part of. And I know a lot of guys are doing this, especially because they're trying to put on a lot of muscle when they come to me. They're trying to put on a lot of weight and they were told to drink a gallon of water. Well, it makes sense because your muscles are 70+% water. But the problem is, if it doesn't contain the electrolytes, you're just going to be flushing out your body. You're going to be feeling weaker. So remember, all of these indications work. You just have to know how to tweak it for your body. And the best way to do is just start to experiment with them for yourself. It's okay. Take small steps, take action, don't get overwhelmed. So hopefully today's podcast was helpful. As always, if it was, please do feel free to share this show with anyone you believe it could serve. I want to sincerely thank you for your support of this podcast. I couldn't do it without you, and I mean that. I truly do. I also want to make sure you knew that we now have multiple ways for you to find your answers to the most difficult health, wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging questions. You can find podcast-specific topics like thyroid, adrenal, hormones, sleep, digestion, Ayurveda, and many more at stevencabral.com/podcasts that will then link you to your favorite Apple, Spotify, and other podcast players. Plus, all new podcasts and weekly exclusive video content is being added to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Stephen Cabral. And that's Stephen with a PH. Head on over and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the exclusive content. Lastly, if you've ever found any of my podcasts or books to be helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes or your favorite media player for the podcast. Rating and subscribing to the YouTube and podcast allow me to reach more and more people and help spread my mission of healing throughout the world. Thank you again for being a part of this movement.